Well, it looks like we finally got some answers. Even though we sort of assumed this was going on at Microsoft, that push and pull back and forth from maybe the gaming division versus just Microsoft as a whole at the corporate level, Satya Nadella and Phil Spencer back and forth. Now we have some reporting about the behind the scenes that are going on and some of the requirements even when it comes to profit margins. And this doesn't paint a great picture right now for Xbox. And at this point, with what we've seen just from the consumer level with prices and other things, it's unfortunately not very surprising either. But we're going to go over that here today as to why Microsoft has done all this aggressive price increases very, very quickly. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. Now let's head over here. This is from Jason Schreier at Bloomberg. I'll leave this link down below because there is a lot of information in this article, in this report that you can go through. But there are a few key points that I wanted to take away from this. Microsoft pushes Xbox division to hit higher profit margins. Management's goal of 30% profit margins for gaming has led to job losses, canceled projects. Yeah, you're reading that right. Here's some of the takeaways that Bloomberg has AI now. I guess that's not too shocking with how everything's going. Anyway, Microsoft Corp is asking its Xbox gaming division to produce profit margins of 30% accountability margins, term that company used in lieu of profit margins. Is that not that is the most corporate line or lingo, accountability margins. Now, that's not new. We saw accountability margins back in when the FTC trial was going on. There was a whole thing about, as we saw, people were really bad at redacting documents. And at one point, it was just a massive dump of documents that were supposed to be redacted and they weren't. And of course, the gaming media went crazy, grabbing a lot of that stuff and going through it and finding some information about even profitability back then. I'm sorry, accountability back then. So Tweakdown did a very good job with this one. And they had this form up. And it shows, there it is, accountability margin. Now, this was back in 2023, I believe, when this document stuff was reported on their website, Tweakdown. And the accountability margin here, you can see of 1.5 billion. And they went through it, sized it up, and saw it was like a 12%, I think, profit margin is what we'll say. But on the stand, I believe Phil Spencer mentioned single-digit profit margin at that time. So fiscal year, this would have been this would have been a year or two before when these documents were technically recorded versus when they were talking about this at trial. So think about that. Single digit profit margins where they believed they were in 2023, and they're looking for 30% right now. So you think about that and it's like, wow, where do they find? I mean, what could be, I figure 20% even. In terms of towards their profit margin. And I want you to realize how big of an ask that is for Microsoft. So think about Sony and Nintendo. Nintendo, while they don't make as much just revenue, gross revenue, as Sony or Microsoft, the big thing that they do is they're very good about their margins. And typically their profit will be higher, like percentage wise. But if you look through Nintendo's years over the last 4 or 5 years, typically it's in like the 25 to 30%. And it's not common even for Nintendo themselves to hit 30% accountability margins for the year. Now it does fluctuate and vary, and they have gotten up against 30% a couple of times. But Microsoft with their own profit margins are not near Nintendo's. The fact that they were single digit in 2023, whereas Nintendo would have been like 24, 25%. Stark difference there. So in order to get to that point, what do? Well, you either make more money on the same amount of money that you're putting out, that would raise your margins then, or you start cutting back expenses. And I'm going to ask you, what has Microsoft been doing over the last couple of years now? They've been laying people off at insane rates. We're talking tens of thousands of people just about. And that's not all in just Xbox division, just across Microsoft completely as a large corporation that employs a lot of people. Yes, but also lays a lot of people off. And then in gaming, of course, they're canceling a lot of projects. That's the other big thing. They closed down the initiative, Turn 10, got like cut in half. We hear about a bunch of games that were being canceled internally, Contraband, gone, Perfect Dark, of course, with the initiative gone. And it seems like that was Microsoft's strategy to go through and be like, what's going to make us, what's like a stone cold lock that's going to make us money? Call of Duty, that'll work. That'll get us money. And that kind of seems to be the trajectory they're on right now. What's the safer bet that will give us a good return? And look, that's typically how you would expect a corporation, a game company even, to be run. But that's not always the way it's done, because, so one example that everybody knows is when a console comes out, it doesn't make a ton of profit. Most times these companies will take a loss, just try to build up an initial install size, get people into the ecosystem, because they know that there's a long-term game of a generation that they'll probably be able to make money off of people getting in right away over the next 8 to 10 years nowadays with how these generations go on. I genuinely think, looking at this, that Microsoft, we talked about $1,000 console. Guys, we might want to up that estimation right now, because I kind of feel like they want to make money on the hardware too, like outright, and not a little bit of money. I kind of think they want to make decent money on the hardware. So I think about even their Surface line, that's not cheap either. And like the Surface PCs and tablets, stuff like that they do, those aren't cheap for the hardware that's in them. And I'm kind of wondering if that's going to be kind of similar for Xbox, and they'll just let third parties who want to do the ROG Ally Xbox X path, they'll deal with the cheaper models, So I kind of wonder if we should start thinking that their next console, next gen system, that Sarah Bond's gone on record saying more of a premium experience. We might be thinking 1,200. That sounds crazy, right? But 30% profit margins? That you're not going to get there easily when you're dumping a ton of money into hardware that you're selling either break even or even at a loss. It's going to be incredibly difficult. And then you also have Game Pass, that it makes more sense now why it went up 50%, like overnight, right? It went from $20 to $30. Well, we got to start improving these margins, because now there's a mandate of 30%. Now, this seems to be coming from, as they say here, Amy Hood, who's the chief financial officer at Microsoft. And that completely impacts strategies of Phil Spencer. And look, that's we talk about how Microsoft Xbox will say one thing this week, and then a couple weeks later, completely different. People talk about the 4 games being a big thing. We'll do 4 games now, and we'll see how it goes. And then before you know it, Halo's probably get announced, for example, tomorrow on the PlayStation. That's most likely what's happening, right? Based on everything going around. So you start to realize, okay, who's actually running the show? Well, Microsoft's running the show, and the CFO comes in, hey, we need more money. We need your accountability margin up. And it's difficult for gaming. Gaming's been more of a volume thing, especially recently over the last decade plus, than just outright, we're going to make a stupid amount of money on every single thing that we sell to get to 30%. It's not really how gaming's worked for maybe even ever. But this isn't great for Microsoft. I mean, this does make you wonder about what their future is going to look like. Near term, sure, because look what happened just from these mandates and having to move their accountability margin. Things get canceled, studios get shut down, people get laid off, and it's just, they're trying to figure out how to make this work. And it does make me wonder how Microsoft even views the Xbox brand at this point, just based on the way that they're kind of moving on their side from the corporate level. Now, does this come back to the Activision Blizzard deal? Yeah, it obviously does. That was $70 billion. If they could go back in time, like I'm thinking Phil Spencer, would they have said, we're good on this deal? I don't know, because part of me also wonders if this deal didn't happen, if Microsoft would feel the need to try to make it work for Xbox right now. You know what I mean? Like they're so invested in this because of if you add everything up that they've invested for buying studios and IPs, near $100 billion. If they weren't that invested, would they feel like they could kind of back out? Because it's not the first time we've heard that they have their doubts or concerns about Xbox. Before the Activision Blizzard thing, there were a lot of discussions around shutting things down with the Xbox One even. So it makes me wonder if the Activision Blizzard deal, while clearly it's had an effect that I don't think is good on Xbox right now, it also makes you wonder if that was the thing that's kept Microsoft in the game right now with this. They can't shut it down after spending $70 billion on Activision Blizzard, and now they have Call of Duty. But at the same time, can they get to 30% accountability margins? I don't know. Well, one thing's for sure. This tells me their games are going to be in as many places as possible. So that Switch 2, I'm sure, is about to get as much stuff as it can. Sony's going to get all kinds of games, which they already are. Again, I think Halo is going to be announced in the next 24 hours for PlayStation 5 with some kind of game. And we'll see how that works out for Microsoft, where they cast a very, very wide net and they continue to try to cut down expenses. Doesn't really seem like a great strategy going into a new generation where the hardware is probably going to struggle at $1,000 or more out of the gate. But it seems like they'll be testing that market. Let me know what you guys think about this one down below. At least we have some answers with this report from Bloomberg as to why all these what seem like knee-jerk reactions coming out of Microsoft for raising prices is happening. Again, I'll leave a link to this report down below in the description. Good report out of Bloomberg. Definitely give it a read. And let me know what you think about all this down below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.